So, I popped into High House Insurance to see if they could quote for my house insurance rather than using the internet. High House got a great deal. So to celebrate, I bought a posh hairdo. It made me look beautiful, gorgeous enough to become a highly paid model. I then won Celebrity Big Brother. I had an affair with an MP. Now I'm promoting a doll of me that says, "Cool blimey, you're well fit."
Happy things happen when you talk face-to-face with High House Insurance. See if we can beat your home insurance quote from the internet. Find us on the High Street Selsey or call 606 552.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the first Manhood Internet Radio programme of 2017. I'm Tony Wiener, your host for this show. I hope you are raring to go in what should be an interesting year. So another year has shot by and most of us have had a very busy time. So to help you, I suggest you sit down with a nice cup of tea and a biscuit and listen to the show, which starts with the very welcome return of Alison's roundup of what's on in the area. That will be followed by the answers to the Christmas quiz, which certainly stopped me sleeping at night. We'll then go over to Paul Sadler to hear what is going on at the bridge, and also to learn about the Selsey Project. Then it's over to Kevin with another brain teaser, and we will finish the show with a piece from Keith with lots of helpful tips on coach travel, which is particularly helpful for those of us taking long distance holidays. Okay then, so a busy schedule. Hopefully you now have your tea, your pen, and before you dunk your biscuit, here is Alison with What's On.
Hello there and welcome back with our New Year update on what's going on in Selsey and the Manhood Peninsula, apart from the roadworks, of course, that is. Let's have a look what you can do if you stay in Selsey this week. On Wednesday the 11th of January, the Selsey Model Boat Club will be meeting. You can see them down at the pond on East Beach from 4 o'clock until 6 o'clock. Also that evening, it's time for the Selsey Community Choir. They meet at the Methodist Hall in the High Street from 7 o'clock until 8:30. If you're looking for something earlier in the day, then it is the Selsey WI at 2:15 meeting in the Town Hall. On Thursday, it's time for the mobile soft play session for under fives. That's held at the Selsey Centre from 10 o'clock until 10:30. If you're interested in that, then you do need to speak to Sue or Tom. They're on 604 642. In the evening, again at the Selsey Centre, it's adults kickboxing, and that kicks off at 8 o'clock in the evening. Also in the evening at the Selsey Club, it's time for the whist drive at 7:30. On Friday the 13th, mindful music making will be taking place at the shop on Selsey High Street between 2 and 3:30. If you'd like to book to go on that, Anna is the person to speak to, and her number is 07912 609 437. I'll repeat that for you. 07912 609 437. That's Anna with Mindful Music Making. Now, the National Blood Service will be coming to visit Selsey. They're at the Selsey Centre from 2 o'clock until 4:30 in the afternoon, and then a little bit later on from 5:30 and 7 until 7:45 if you want to give blood on Friday. On Saturday, the Venture Bus will be having their usual garage sale between 9 and 12 on the High Street, and also the Scouts run their charity shop from 10 until 12. There's also kickboxing at the Selsey Centre for 4 to 6-year-olds beginning at 9:45, and they have a family class at 10:30 in the morning. On Sunday, it's time again for the Selsey Model Boat Club. They meet at the pond on East Beach between 10 and 12 in the morning. The Methodist Church have their speaker for the week, Mr. Chris Azzaro, if you want to go and hear him. And in the afternoon, East Beach Evangelical Church will be holding their respite tea at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. On Tuesday the 17th of January, another mobile soft play session for the under fives, again at the Selsey Centre from 10 o'clock until 11:30. Sue or Tom are the people to speak to, 604 642. And then later on in the day, kids kickboxing again at the Selsey Centre for 4 to 6-year-olds at 4:30 in the afternoon, and for the over sixes, they meet at 5. So that's a look at Selsey. Let's move over now to the Witterings and Bracklesham, see what's going on there. On Thursday, the 12th of January, their pantomime will be starting. Take the Mummy and Run, it's called. That's held at Bracklesham Barn. and 7:30 is the time for that. It's also taking place the next day, Friday the 13th, again at 7:30. During the day, it's the day for the South Coast Networking 11s meeting, starting, as you might imagine, at 11 and finishing at 12:30. They meet at the Harbour Way Country Club. And also in the morning, it's the Wittering Quilters Quilting Bee. That takes place at St Peter's Church Hall between 10:30 and 4:30. Judith Rogers is the person to speak to about that. Her number is 511 431. Saturday the 14th, again, don't forget the pantomime, Take the Mummy and Run, 7:30 again in the evening at Bracklesham Barn. And on Sunday the 15th, there is a matinee. So that's Sunday the 15th in the afternoon. And then on Tuesday the 17th, there's Strength and Balance being held at the Bracklesham Barn between 2:30 and 3:30. And later on in the afternoon, Up for Dance Mishmash for all juniors at the barn between 4:30 and 5:30. So that's the roundup of what's going on. Let's have a look now at the weather so you can plan ahead for the week. On Wednesday the 11th, we can expect a high of 52 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 degrees Celsius with light cloud cover, a 15-mile-an-hour westerly wind. Tuesday the 12th, down a little to 48 degrees Fahrenheit or 9 degrees Celsius with light rain showers, 19 miles per hour the wind, west-southwesterly. Friday the 13th, down a little bit again, 43 degrees Fahrenheit, 6 degrees Celsius, but it should be sunny with an 18-mile-an-hour wind, west-northwesterly. Saturday the 14th, the temperatures will hold at 43 or 6, sunny intervals, a 13-mile-an-hour westerly wind. Sunday the 15th, again, same sort of temperatures, sunny though, with the same wind speed of 13 miles per hour, and that again will be a westerly. On Monday the 16th, no change in the temperatures, sunny intervals this time, slightly lower wind speed, 12 miles an hour, northwesterly. And Tuesday the 17th, temperatures a little up, 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius, light cloud cover, 12 mile an hour, north-northeasterly. So if you're planning to go out, Friday and Sunday will be the sunniest days, but Wednesday the 11th will be warmest with a high of 11 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, if you want to walk along the beach, let's have a look at the tide tables. Wednesday the 11th, high tide will be at 10:15 in the morning and low at 5 to 4 in the afternoon. Changing, of course, during the week, ending Tuesday the 17th with a low tide at 8:10 in the morning and a high tide at 20 to 3 in the afternoon. Well, that's about it. Hope you enjoy doing some of those things during the week, and I'll speak to you again next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you, Alison. A busy time, but we cannot keep you waiting any longer. Here is the answer to the Christmas quiz.
And it's time for the answers to last week's quiz, in which Kevin asked us which group's Knights in White Satin only reached number 19 in the chart on its original release in 1968. Well, it was the Moody Blues. Which film did the band McFly take their name from? That was Back to the Future. Abyssinian, Norwegian Forest and Manx were all breeds of what? That was Cat. Who was the only son of a Formula One world champion to win the Formula One World Championship? That was Damon Hill. Which comedians' DVDs include Live at the Bolton Albert Halls and Live at the Top of the Tower? That was Peter Kay. Which company, now most famous for shaving products, only stopped producing swords in 2005? That was, of course, Wilkinson Sword. Katie Holmes was the only cast member to appear in all 128 episodes of which cult TV show? That was Dawson's Creek, and I never saw one of them. And which two boxers named Sugar Ray have won world titles? And that's Sugar Ray Leonard and Sugar Ray Robinson. And the link is, they were all England players in the 2003 Rugby World Cup winners team.
Thank you. Now, many people have asked us what goes on in the building called the Bridge, which is behind the Selsey Library. So to find out, we have Keith talking to Paul Sadler.
Hi, my next guest is Paul Sadler, and Paul's involved in a project that's going on down at the Bridge at the moment called Grow Selsey. Now, I don't particularly know very much about it. In fact, I don't know very much about it at all. But Paul's going to fill us in on all the information. Good morning, Paul.
Thank you. Yes. So, thank you for inviting me along. So yes, I have been helping out with Youth Dream, who are based, if you are unaware of the Youth Dream charity, we're based at the Bridge, which is the building behind the library in Selsey. And we do an awful lot of projects specifically with the academy. We're working with the school to help pupils in terms of a lot of different types of educational projects, and we provide support to the pupils through emotional well-being and counselling and a whole variety of different things in partnership with them. And we're really lucky that we have use of quite a nice piece of land, which is the Bridge is the old caretaker's house, and all of the land that's sort of associated with the caretaker's bungalow, which is the Bridge now, we're utilising, and we're in the process of coming up with ideas for how we can develop it as a food growing and gardening project, which is there for the school to utilise in an educational capacity, and also for the wider community, the wider Selsey community, and anyone else who, would like to come along and volunteer with us, to come along and, share your skills that you've got with us and your resources, and, a great opportunity to meet some new people and learn some new skills yourself, and just to get involved with, what we hope is going to become something which is, that will be in essence a hub for some wider food growing and gardening projects across the whole of Selsey, which will come under the banner of what we're calling Grow Selsey. So, yes, this is a...
Has there been much take up from the kids, kids, I shouldn't call them kids, young adults, but from the kids at the school?
Yes, we've got some great interest through a variety of projects that we run in conjunction with the school. Pupils have coming over. We generally, at the moment, we're generally only running something on a Friday. And obviously, what happened over the summer with the school and the unfortunate fire that took place, and the school's now obviously located in the porta cabins, further away from the Bridge than they used to be. It is difficult sometimes, being able to get pupils across because there's that physical barrier of the site being all fenced off and everything. So we're tending at the moment to only be able to do things after school. Going into the winter, again, that becomes a little bit more difficult because obviously it gets dark quite early, but we're running activities after school on a Friday. The plan is to increase that to more days during the week, to have activities that are taking place during the day when we can organise more curriculum-based activities with the school themselves, and to obviously do things also during holiday times as well. So it's not just open necessarily to the academy pupils, it's open to young people, whoever, in terms of, things that they might be interested in around gardening and food growing and learning those aspects of what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that as you said, there's been quite a big interest from the young adults with regard to gardening, because it's not something that most of them are into nowadays. It seems strange to me that the youngsters would get involved with the gardening. Very young children tend to, but
yeah, you're right. So, my background has been very much with doing this kind of work in, all sorts of different parts of the country in the past. And you're right in the sense that it does tend to be something which is more attractive to sort of primary age pupils. Primary school, I suppose it's also the nature of the curriculum as well. With primary schools, they tend to have a bit more flexibility around being able to allow projects of this nature to take place. And once you get to that secondary age, it's obviously a lot more targeted around results. And, they're very defined in terms of, the particular subject areas. So it is definitely more of a challenge working with secondary school around a food growing project, but not impossible. And, there's lots of areas of the curriculum where it's really pretty perfect as a way of, developing and actually delivering those aspects of the curriculum. So, but what we're doing at the moment is not so much based around that. This is very much around pupils coming across voluntarily and helping out. And it's great. We're having pupils who, really are, just loving being outdoors, being able to interact with their environment, learning more about nature, learning more about the environment. And, for me, that feedback of having young people, being enthusiastic about what goes on around them is wonderful. It's exactly why I'm interested in this sort of work.
If you set yourself a very difficult task and you get a result from it, that's far more rewarding than setting yourself a very simple task and getting a result from it. So yes, I can understand it.
And the other thing that is wonderful as well, and that I've experienced with many projects in the past, is that obviously when you get in other volunteers, and basically this whole project is very much open to anybody. It's not just for the pupils at the academy. It's open to any age group of people, any type, anybody with any experience, whether they've got any knowledge of food growing and gardening in any capacity at all. It really doesn't matter. Enthusiasm is what is the main thing that we hope people will bring. And everybody brings some sort of knowledge. Everybody brings some kind of skills. And it may be that practically you might not want to get involved in this project. We're also open to anybody who may like to come and donate anything that they've got that they don't use any longer, in terms of things like tools and equipment, or some plants, or some seeds, or some plant pots, anything of that nature. Is, we were welcoming those kind of donations to help us really kickstart what we're doing. We're doing some renovation on an old wooden shed at the moment that's next to the bridge, which we're going to turn into a potting shed and a propagation zone. And that's going to be a really nice indoor environment, especially at this time of year, where we can do some practical activities and we can get things growing, we can fix things, we can, use that as a place where we can grow seedlings. And you may have also seen that there's an old bike shed, which is sort of between the library and the bridge, which hasn't got any cover on it any longer. It's just the framework. And at the moment, I'm looking at a practical way that we can actually turn that into a polytunnel and use that as, somewhere to grow. Something that we'd like to do is, develop a kind of enterprise project, again linked to the secondary school, because they do a business studies course. They've got a GCSE course going on there, and we're hoping to grow some stuff like some herbs and some fast growing salads, and see if we can get local businesses interested in buying stuff like that off us, and really get that connection going with what's going on in the community as well.
Now, you say this is open to anybody, so obviously if people need information, or they'd like some information on that, how can they contact you?
Okay, so you can come and just physically drop by. There's always somebody at the bridge Monday to Friday. So, you can drop in and show your interest and let us know that you'd like to be involved, and somebody who will be there to take your details down. Or you could email me. That's fine. My name is Paul Sadler, and that's my email at youthdream.co.uk. So, Paul Sadler is spelt Paulsadler at youthdream.co.uk. So if you want to let us know that you'd be interested, I'm more than happy for you to do that. Probably the most two easiest means at the moment to get involved. We have a website as well, which is easily found, and you can find us on that, and what some of the other projects are that we're involved with. So that's there too to find out. But yeah, please drop by. I think, more than anything, it's nice just to physically see somebody and, put a face to a name, and just have
access to the bridge easy now.
It is okay, yeah. No,
it used to all be padlocked, and you used to get through the gate.
No, it's open all the time. So like I said, Monday to Friday, you'll find that the gate, which is just behind the library, is open, and you can just walk in and you can come up to the back door of the bridge, and just come in there and just sort of, you'll find somebody hopefully who you can have a chat to.
Yeah, well, that's great stuff. Well, I wish you well on the project, because anybody that can get youngsters out gardening is doing a good job in my book, and can get their interest. You know, it's getting them back into something that the youngsters used to do many years ago. And maybe they're finding the value of it now.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's that sense that it's not necessarily just always about what we might think as, you know, what is, you know, gardening. It's just that sense of having a little bit of freedom, a chance to get outside in the fresh air. And, you know, they're getting to meet people who are interesting people to meet, other volunteers that come to the bridge. You know, everyone's got a great story. Everyone, you know, has a passion for something different to grow, and everybody's learning from everyone else in terms of, you know, what they've got to offer. So it's nice from that perspective. It's nice to, you know, for me, it's also about sort of breaking down those barriers of young people and old people sometimes, and what they feel about each other, and them getting the chance to, you know, show that their stories are really worth listening to, and sharing time together and that kind of thing.
That can get young people and old people together and they can talk about the differences and understand each other. He's doing a good job in my book.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important.
The biggest problem between the age groups is the lack of understanding.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thanks once again for coming in, Paul. And hopefully you'll have lots of people want to come down and help out.
Thank you.
And share their knowledge. It won't be me, because I've no knowledge whatsoever when it comes to gardening. But thanks once again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now it's over to Kevin with another brain teaser.
Right, hi, it's Kevin the Quiz with this week's dose of quiz questions, 5 general knowledge questions. What are the answers to the questions? And at the end, what connects all the answers? What's the connection? Question number 1. Which 19th century British soldier and politician was nicknamed the Iron Duke? Question number 2. Classical music. Which Australian soprano was born Helen Mitchell in 1861? So what was her stage name? Question number 3. Which 19th century general and politician played a large part in the unification of Italy? Who was he? Question number 4. Which early 20th century English king had an affair with the actress Lily Langtry, known as the Jersey Rose? Which king? And number 5, classical music again, but which Italian composer wrote the very famous William Tell Overture? So 5 questions. What's the connections between all the answers?
Thank you. Now over to Keith for an interesting piece on coach travel, or as we say in Yorkshire, taking the bus.
Hi, and welcome back to Manhood Internet Radio. Well, I trust you all had a very pleasant Christmas break. We certainly did, and I shall be telling you about that in a few moments. And that you're all recovered from your hangovers, and that all your prezzies that you didn't want are unwrapped and shoved back in the cupboard somewhere. And I hope you got some that you did want, of course. Now, the wife and I decided to go away this Christmas, and that's the first time since we've been married, which is more than just a couple of years. Considerably more than just a couple of years, actually. And we chose to go to Austria because we thought we'd like to be somewhere where there might be snow at Christmas. And we chose to go by coach. Now, you might think that's a strange choice, but there are plenty of reasons for it, and I'm going to enlighten you on some of those over the next 15-20 minutes. Now, for one reason or other, the wife and I have done many coach journeys over the past, possibly 20 years. And there are lots of tips and little hints that can make the journey far more pleasant. And as we go through this piece, I'm going to drop those in, so a little bit of guidance for you along the way that might make life easier when you decide to actually take your coach trip. One of the first things I learned early on was that while I was very patient in travelling on a coach, long journeys abroad, when it came to coming home, I wanted to be home as quick as possible. And I learned very quickly that the best way to do that is to park your car as near to the final pickup point as you can. So many places now where the coaches pick up finally before they cross the channel, you can actually park your car up. It does cost, but it's not terrifically expensive. And then when you come back, you get off the coach at the first drop-off point, which for us was Hythe in Kent, so there's no distance really at all from Dover Docks. and then we're in the car and we were home in 2 hours. Now, if you were to do that by feeder coach, that would probably take you 3.5 to 4 hours, and sometimes even more, depending on traffic, of course. So, first tip is park up as near as you can to the departure point and take it from there. Now, some people, of course, enjoy the coach trip from wherever they are, and they like to see England as much as they like to see anywhere else. So, it's not for everybody, but it's just a tip that I learned for somebody as impatient as I am. If you can drive down to somewhere near the final pickup point and get the coach and pick up the coach there, then it doesn't take you so long to get home. That's point number one. Our chosen carrier for this trip was Shearings, but there are, of course, many other coach companies about that run tours all over Europe, so you have plenty of choice, and it's all a matter of personal preference. Now, we arrived at stop 24 at Hythe in Kent, just off the M20 motorway, about an hour and a half too early, but I'd prefer to be too early than 15 minutes too late, because if you miss the coach and you're down that far, you've got no chance of catching it up again. So if you were further up country and you'd missed your coach, you could perhaps get a taxi at your own cost and catch up with the coach, or find the coach at the next pickup point, or even drive as far as Hythe and drop you off there. But it might cost an awful lot of money. But that's an option if you did miss a coach. However, if you miss the coach at the final stop, then the coach is gone down to the docks and away without you. They're very patient and they're very organised, but it does happen. You can't account for traffic, and that is one thing that you will learn if you travel by coach. You cannot account for traffic, either in this country or anywhere else in Europe. I do think personally that France is probably one of the best countries in the world to drive in, because there seems to be so little traffic for a big country. But anyway, you usually get away fairly quickly through France. Now, the coach terminal works very much like any other terminal, aircraft terminal, rail terminal, where vehicles come in from various parts of the world, or the UK in this case, and they all meet up at one point, and then the coaches are allocated to which strip they're doing, and one would guess probably this is pre-planned, hopefully. And then you go, your coach is called, and you go to the bay where the coach is parked, and you take your luggage with you, and then they put the luggage on the coach, and that's the last you see of it until you get to the hotel. And the next thing, and it's something that doesn't happen very often on aircraft nowadays, you get to meet the crew. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a 2-driver crew, you'll get to meet the both of them, and ours was somewhat unusual, in as much as it was a husband and wife team called Paul and Leslie. And Leslie was the boss, no doubt about that. Paul did as he was told, thankfully, so there was no rows. But a very nice couple, and they're with you for the whole of the trip. Paul and Leslie have worked for the company for about 4 years. They came here together after Leslie passed her driving test. And who was her instructor? Well, it was Paul. Yeah, Paul was the driving instructor teaching her how to drive a coach. Leslie came from a hospitality and hotel background and decided that she wanted to do something different. And so Paul managed to get her through a test, and I don't imagine he's ever been able to tell her how to do anything since. No, they're a great couple, really. And after she passed her test, she invited Paul on her adventure. Ah, they're lovely. Now, if that all sounds a bit romantic and you think that you and the wife might like to spend your days travelling abroad and driving people around Europe, you might want to reconsider, because they spend about 38 weeks a year away from home and not always together. In actual fact, quite often not together. And so if absence makes the heart grow fonder, these two must be really fond of each other. As with any other form of travel, the gremlins can get in the works, and it wasn't long on this particular trip before they made their presence felt. It was decided that as there were delays on the ferries, and mostly this was caused by bad weather, that we would go via the tunnel, much to my wife's joy, because she doesn't travel very well on the sea, and so she was very pleased to be going by train. And of course this meant that we would arrive on the other side about an hour earlier than predicted, and so we could be on our way and get to the hotel in Liège in Belgium about an hour earlier than planned. Wrong. Gremlin number 1 decided to play his joker, and unfortunately one poor couple got on the wrong coach, and so off they set on the ferry, and when we got to the other side we had to wait for them to come and join us so they could carry on with their trip. And all this to be sorted out by the daring duo, Paul and Leslie, before we'd even got to the other side. Now, in itself, you'd think this is not such a big problem, But there were one or two other offshoots from it that could cause you problems if you weren't prepared. Now, one of those is you're advised to eat on board the ship so that you know you've got a dinner before you get to the hotel, because on the first night of the hotel, you're late arriving and you may not get a dinner. So you're always advised to eat on the ship if you're arriving late in the evening. And of course, we couldn't do that because we were on the train, and the train doesn't have a buffet car. So the consequences of this was that we had to make a meal stop once we got on the road, which of course we'd already lost the 1 hour that we'd gained by coming on the train in waiting for the other couple to join us. And so now we're going to lose a bit more time having to stop for a meal break. Now, these things have to be done and there's no getting around them, and you just have to put up with them. And the seasoned travellers do. They shrug it off and think it's nothing. Some people, however, don't take it too easily. And this, of course, then tends to cause a bit of friction, perhaps, on the coach, and it puts even more pressure on the drivers. And this is where they earn their saintly status. Anyway, after a couple of fairly lengthy delays due to traffic, which couldn't be helped, we arrived at the hotel on the outskirts of Liège at about 9:30 in the evening. So it'd been quite a long day, very long for some people. But if you plan to go on a coach journey that's around 1,800 miles round trip from Stop 24 at Hythe in Kent, it's going to take time. You're expecting the drivers to drive the equivalent of London to Glasgow every day, and you can't expect them to get there to the minute. So you have to take all this stuff in your stride. But of course, you've got the beauty of the scenery that you're going through, and unlike the poor driver, you can fall asleep any time you like, and so arrive refreshed. And here endeth the first day. After an early night and then an early start, nice early breakfast, we were on the road once again and on our way to Werfenweng in Austria, which is just south of Salzburg. A long day in front of us, lots of mileage under a belt, and some wonderful scenery to see en route. And a little tip that I learned very early on was it's quite useful on these long journeys to take a Walkman of some description with you, so some MP3 player or whatever you've got, and go to your library and get a couple of talking books, because with a talking book you can watch the scenery and listen to the story, whereas if you've got a book in your hand and the wife or your husband gives you a nudge and says, "Oh, look at this, dear," you lose your place in the story, or you might just lose your thread. So Walkman's always a good idea. Of course, many of you now will have tablets and other such items that you can keep your entertainment on, and you can watch films or whatever. So if you take one of those with you, it'll just kill a few hours along the way. And also a neck pillow. They're cheap enough, but a neck pillow just gives you a little bit of support. And so if you decide you want to shut your eyes for a little while and drift off, you can do. Very comfortable. Throughout the journey, of course, there'll be regular comfort stops and meal breaks so that you can get a cup of coffee or get some lunch, and you can use the facilities. Now, if you're travelling down through Germany, and I believe Belgium is the same, then beware, because you will need 70 cents to use the loos in the services. Now, I know I can hear you crying out now, 70 cents to go to the loo? Ridiculous. But what happens is you put your 70 cents in the machine and it lets you through a turnstile type gate, and it issues you with a voucher for 50 cents. Now, you can use that voucher to buy your coffee or crisps or whatever you like in the services, and they'll take that off the sale. So a little tip, when going to the loo, use the loo first, then get your voucher, then go and buy your coffee and your sandwiches or whatever, not the other way round. Although you can carry them on into other services, and they'll take 4 or 5 at a time. They're not really fussed. But so you could actually have €2.50 worth of crisps or whatever from the services after you racked up a load of visits to the loo during the course of the day. On board the coach, there are toilets, and I have only ever come across one company that openly encourages you to use the onboard toilets. Most of them will tell you that they're only for emergencies, and there are various reasons for that. But believe me, they are so small that you really wouldn't want to use them in anything other than an emergency anyway. So, when you stop at the services, make sure you use the facilities, make sure you get your voucher. And so, on the evening of the 22nd of December, we arrived at our destination, which was Werfenweng, a small village which is south of Salzburg. The staff at the hotel Zistelberghof were very, very friendly. It's a family-run hotel, and they really looked after us. They got us in as quick as they could, got our bags up to our room so we could freshen up, and then down for dinner and a lovely meal of Wiener Schnitzel. And then we adjourned to the bar for a couple of drinks, which was very nice indeed. And the travelling friendships started to blossom a bit then. You do find with coach travel that you tend to make friends on board the coach and at the overnight stops. And quite often those friendships will last for many years. Whereas if you travel by plane to somewhere, you're sitting by somebody on the plane, and when you get off, they're going to a different hotel. You never see them again. You may see them on a return journey, but that's about it. On board the coach, of course, it's far more opportunity to learn about people and to learn whether they're your type of people or not, and to make friends with them. Now, as I said, we arrived the previous evening in the pitch dark, and so we couldn't see very much at all. Imagine our surprise when we woke up in the morning and looked out of the room window and had a fabulous view over the mountains. Absolutely incredible. All of a sudden, you'd forgotten about the 2 days on the coach. There was snow on the ground, not a great deal of it, but it was there. And this awesome view out over the mountains. Absolutely incredible. Now, after a hearty breakfast, and you could have eggs, bacon, sausages, or you could go for the continental type with cold meats and whatever. There was loads of choice for breakfast. Absolutely smashing. And after that, we were off for a day in Salzburg and a guided walking tour. The trip to Salzburg itself was included in the cost of the holiday. The guided walking tour, however, was an extra, but I have to say, well worth every penny. It was very, very entertaining. We had a guide called Christoph, and he loved to stop at certain points. Very knowledgeable about Salzburg, as you would expect, but he loved to stop at certain points and burst into song. And of course, where did those songs come from? The Sound of Music, absolutely right. Now, they tell me that the Austrians are not keen on the Sound of Music. Well, they're certainly keen on turning a few bob from it, and I can't blame them for that. It's a lovely country, lovely people, and like everywhere else in the world, they've got to earn where they can. Now, when we arrived in Salzburg, the Christmas markets were on, and that was very, very pleasant. That was a nice addition to the trip. Have a wander around the Christmas markets. Now, Christmas markets are what they are wherever they are in the world, but there's lots of local stuff as well for sale, and some unusual bits and pieces. So if you wanted to pick up one or two unusual Christmas presents, that was the place to do it. But of course, you'd be a bit late delivering them if you were taking them back home. There's much to see and do in Salzburg, and you could quite easily fill up a day wandering around, visiting the castle and Mozart's birthplace and other various places, the Bishop's Palace and what have you. But on a day when the temperatures were -5, wandering round fairly aimlessly was a little bit too long for me. Half a day would have been fine. But we took on board some Glühwein, quite expensive in the Christmas market, but very reasonable elsewhere. And we took in the spirit of things, and so it was well worth the visit. Lovely day out. On Christmas Eve, we decided to take the optional excursion to Hallstatt. Now, Hallstatt's a lovely little village, so picturesque. It's chocolate box stuff on the side of the lake, Lake Hallstatt, and home to the world's first salt mine, which you can go and visit, but we couldn't go and visit because it was Christmas Eve and it was closed. Hallstatt was pretty much closed on Christmas Eve. But the cafes and the little bars did open from 11 o'clock until about 2 o'clock. And obviously, they do that not because they enjoy it, but because they like the money. Because Christmas Eve to them is the day. Christmas Day, not so much, but Christmas Eve to them is the day. So it's like most people working on Christmas Day. They didn't really want to be working on Christmas Eve, but they made everybody welcome. And it was mainly just little cafes and bars that were open. All the major places closed. Not that there were many major places because it's such a beautiful little village, but if you get the chance to go there, well worth a visit. On arrival back at the hotel, we were invited to take Glühwein and cookies, which is a traditional thing apparently. And of course the beauty of staying at a family-run hotel is you get these sort of things. Now, I couldn't eat the cookies because I'm diabetic, but they looked absolutely gorgeous. They were more like petit fours really, but they were absolutely wonderful. And I did ask one or two people what they thought. Well, I was almost tempted to have one just based on their answers, but I decided not to. Too much sugar. We were also invited to carol singing round the Christmas tree. Now, this is something else that they do regularly because it's a family-run hotel. And other guests that were there, family members, because they did have some of their other family visiting them. And there were young children, and the young children sat around the Christmas tree, and we all came down and got round the tree as well. And they were thoughtful enough to produce song sheets, or a song sheet, for Silent Night, which was written in German and English, with the verses alternating. So one verse in German, one verse in English. And so everybody sang all the verses, and it sounded absolutely gorgeous. And one of the guys played along with the guitar, and just fabulous, absolutely fabulous. A very simple touch that meant so much at Christmas. And later in the evening, if you wanted to attend midnight mass in the local church, the hotel would allow transport, and they would take you there and back. And a good many people took them up on it. I wasn't one of them, I have to say. I stayed snug in the hotel. But a lot of people went, and they said how good it was. It was great to be welcomed in to the very small local community and to be welcomed in like that. And they said that really was the spirit of Christmas. Well, Christmas morning, and we'd nothing particularly to get up early for. We hadn't been up half the night wrapping presents, so we could have a lay-in. Well, until about 7:30 that was, and then I became aware of some lunatic jumping up and down, waving their arms about, saying, "It's snowing, it's snowing, it's snowing." We were in Austria, we expected it to snow. And then I realised it was the wife. With the enthusiasm of a young child catching Santa Claus going back up the chimney, she was jumping up and down, saying, "It's snowing, it's snowing." And in fairness, all she asked out of this trip was that it snowed on Christmas Day, and doing that especially for her. Well, as far as she was concerned, especially for her. But it was wonderful. It really made the holiday for her, and it was a nice touch, and it was snowing very heavily at that time, and we had a sleigh ride to look forward to. We were going out around the area on a horse-drawn sleigh, or a two-horse-drawn sleigh, and there were 4 or 5 sleighs going out. And we were looking forward to that, but that wasn't until 10:30, so by which time the snow could become quite deep. Well, by 10:30 the snow had virtually stopped, thankfully, because it was quite cold outside. And for once in my life, heeding the advice my mother gave me, if you're going out in the cold, wrap up warm. So with long johns and a thick jumper and a t-shirt and a thick coat and a scarf and a woolly hat and gloves, off we went to the sleigh ride. I would guess that the sleigh ride travelled about 4 miles or over 4 miles around the village and up into the hills and back. Excellent. Great way to spend it. Christmas morning. Unbelievable. If you've never done it, it's something you really should do. And then it was back to the hotel for Christmas lunch and a thaw out. The rest of Christmas Day, of course, was spent much as always, overeating, over-drinking and under-exercising. And so to Boxing Day, and on Boxing Day we went to Lake Wolfgang, and Lake Wolfgang is in an area known as the Salzkammergut, which is known as the Austrian Lake District. And we went up to Lake Wolfgang, and we got on a boat, and we travelled up the lake, which was all very splendid, except for the top deck on the boat didn't have any seats. So if you were sat downstairs absolutely baking in the saloon, that was all very warm and all very nice. But if you were up on top, you really did need your winter clothes. It was quite fresh. As I say, nowhere to sit. But anyway, that aside, it was a lovely journey. 2 very picturesque villages that we went to, and a final look at Austria before we got back on the coach the following day and headed back to the UK. So we said our farewells to the Hotel Zustelberghof in Werfenweng, and we headed through France, where the motorway service toilets are free, but not as pleasant as the German ones, taking a different route back because we came down through Germany, and we stayed on the outskirts of Reims for the final night of our tour. And in the hotel you could buy a bottle of the local brew, something like Moet Chandon or Veuve Clicquot or whatever, for a mere 69, anywhere up to €100 for a bottle of that. Or you could buy a very cheap bottle of Red Plonk for $24.40, which would probably cost you about €3 in the local supermarket if you could get to one. Anyway, it's the last night of the holiday, so we have a bottle of wine and we have dinner. And we sit down and chew the fat with our newly made friends and say goodbye to some of those that we may not see when we get off the coach the following day. And I think we all agreed that the watchword for coach travel is exactly the same as the Boy Scouts motto, which is be prepared. And so the final journey. Back across the channel, a very uneventful trip, thankfully, much calmer than the day we came out, and back up to stop 24 at Hythe in Kent, just off the M20 there, where we will eventually shake hands with the driver and, on this occasion, his wife, and say thank you for all their efforts over the holiday, and also to say thank you to some of the lovely people we met, and that was David from just outside Doncaster, Peter and Trish from the Isle of Man, Clive and Lynn from down in Southampton, and to Brenda from up in North Yorkshire. And I'd just like to say a great big thank you to them for being part of it and for helping make it a Christmas to remember.
Thank you, Keith. And with that, we have come to the end of the show, so it just remains for me to thank all our contributors, including Local Life magazine, our sound editor, John Mallett, our presenters, Alison, Kevin and Keith, not forgetting, of course, our producer, John Fletcher. So it's goodbye from me, Tony Weiner. Until next time, bye.